impassable altogether, but also even the subway system in New York City was impacted.
Yeah, it was, look at people. We haven't had to do anything like that in New York City for a while, picking up the stroller.
Yeah.
It's just, it can be quite a mess of things, but it was also dangerous. We know that 3 people lost their lives as a result of these storms. We aren't looking at anything this significant, at least in the near future. But hey, there's always a chance, especially through the month of February. All right, we do want to take it to the West Coast now. This weekend, and beginning today, actually, we have to keep a close eye on the coast because we have the potential for flooding, another atmospheric river event that's going to bring the potential and that danger for flooding, especially over areas that were recently burned in wildfires. Here's some of the scenes of flooding that we've seen this winter from heavy rain across parts of Northern California. Southern California hasn't seen much at all. In fact, for the first time in a couple of years, we saw the extreme drought get reintroduced. So it's been very dry for the southern part of the state, so we need the rain, but too much of a good thing in too short of time, Kendall, as you know, can be a very dangerous thing. And then you introduce the fact that we've had very large, destructive wildfires that have completely destroyed much of the land in through Southern California to make it very difficult for any of that water to get absorbed.
Yeah, there's virtually no vegetation left to actually absorb and take on all of that water. So especially in those recent burn scar locations, this is going to be a major issue. And I mean, I'm very concerned about this. I think you probably are as well. This will be likely a significant event. Santa Barbara, Santa Clarita, Riverside, Los Angeles, you were just there not too long ago covering the wildfires.
Yeah, and unfortunately, so Ventura, LA County, into the LA Basin, you could have some of the minor, more urban flooding, absolutely. But the big problem and the part to highlight is that we have these burn areas. So in through Altadena, the runoff that we could get off of the San Gabriel Mountains, also with the Palisades fire in Santa Monica Mountains. These are areas that are going to be incredibly vulnerable. And that water, depending on the intensity of the rain that we do get and how long it lasts, that water can rush down these mountainsides, Kendall, exceeding 100 miles per hour and carrying a lot of debris with it.
Right. So we'll be watching those areas very carefully, but it's not just the heavy rain. It's also the higher elevations where we will be picking up on some heavy snow. So the Sierra Nevada mountains will be seeing that as well. But certainly in the near term, the rain, the flood threat, the debris flows, what have you, that's the biggest issue. And folks need to be prepared as prepared as you can be, because there's really not much you can do in this situation. But the rain totals 2 to 3 inches possible now through Friday for much of the Los Angeles metro. It's going to be a tough go of things.
It's a lot of rain, and it all really kicks off tonight. It peaks Thursday, and then it'll wind down Friday. So please pay very close attention to some of the alerts that could be going off. All right, so from the West Coast to the East Coast, we've had a wild ride of things of sorts, right? Plows in this instance had a tough time keeping up with the snow that was falling in Washington, D.C. This was just last night. Well, this morning, D.C. and then many cities along the mid-Atlantic coast continue to work their way, dig out of some of the snow that did fall. I think D.C. that we did have, at least out of DCA, about 6 inches of snow. That's a good one for the city. This winter storm could be the biggest for so many out of the Midwest especially. So we're prepared. We hope you are as well. Make sure you download the Fox Weather app and turn on those notifications for the latest updates. And our team coverage will continue through the weekend.
We know that finding high-quality foods you can trust can be challenging. That's why Go Macro is making Natural Grocery Store's best-selling bar available nationwide. Discover the delicious world of Go Macro and try a macro bar today.
Hey there, good morning and welcome inside Weather Command. I'm Marissa Torres.
And I'm Kendall Smith. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday, February 12th.
If you've been one of those folks in search for signs that winter might make an early exit, maybe ghost out a little early, we'll keep searching. At least for the time being. February is often the snowiest time of the season for portions of the plains as well as the Northeast. And with a parade of powerful winter storms currently marching through these regions, things seem to be performing as history says they should. So we are tracking a lot of active areas. We have millions of folks from Kansas all the way to New York that are digging themselves out this morning. The first of 3 winter storms still kind of hanging on, but it is shifting away from the U.S. at this point. We had areas that received over 6 inches of snow, and that included spots in Kentucky, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, even New Jersey, spots getting over half a foot of snow. But this was yesterday and then even into this morning. The storm also triggering just hundreds of weather-related crashes and delaying hundreds of flights, if not canceling some altogether. The last of the snow and freezing rain, it is winding down across portions of the mid-Atlantic as we see everything shift offshore. But it's kind of still hanging on, at least with a pinky for some spots. And it's been a dangerous ride for many across the state of Virginia. But as one storm ends, another one begins. Snow is already falling this morning across portions of the central states. This monster midweek winter storm quickly charging toward the Great Lakes. And this one will be more impactful for a greater amount of people. This one has a little bit more coverage, and it's also extending further north than what we just had. So places like Chicago, look at how much the clouds have dropped even within the past hour. So we're going to start to see snow fill in within the late morning, afternoon hours. Kansas City, you're on the backside, though you still could get a little bit more accumulation. Look at Cedar Rapids, where the snow is coming down. Iowa really needs the snow. We have quite a deficit coming out of Des Moines, Iowa. And Detroit, that's my hometown, my home city, the 313. Detroit has about a foot deficit when it comes to snowfall for the season. Detroit isn't one of those cities that really gets the lake effect snow, so it really hasn't seen much action. We do have team coverage this morning for you. Across the board, we have our meteorologists, we have our reporters and exclusive storm trackers that are going to be positioned in all the right spots to track this latest winter storm. Let's go ahead and dive into it, though, because we do have some active weather alerts, Kendall. Where do you want to kick it off? To the plains or to the mid-Atlantic? The Delmarva, especially, this area here really has seen quite a mess, but so is the state of Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to just talk about the fact that nearly 150,000 customers in the state of Virginia are without power right now. That's not a good situation. That's an incredibly high number. We've got 10.3 thousand out of power in North Carolina. So we've seen an incredible uptick in power outages over the last few hours.
We can wait for it to come back. They come back.
Oh,
you think? Oh, it's okay. Potentially power outage issue.
So there you have it. That's kind of how this goes. Okay, now it's back up. So
there we go.
We're dealing with sporadic power. It's trying to come back on, but the fact that the ice has done such a number on the region, we knew it would. So the Blue Ridge Mountains, unfortunately, we knew were going to be targeted with the potential for about a quarter of an inch of ice, all the way up to maybe half an inch of ice.
Grainger has it. With over 1,700 types of boxes in stock, you'll find all the shapes and sizes you're looking for. And you can count on Grainger to deliver your boxes fast. Call or click Grainger.com today.
Its way up from the south, really interrupting that profile, that column of air that melted any snowflake that was trying to fall. So the concern for freezing rain, it still exists. To your point, the power outages, being on the roads is going to be dangerous. A lot of schools closed yesterday, yet again dealing with those problems today. And you'll notice this is going to be, let's see, just past I-70, it looks like we're starting to see things dry out back to the west. But this is one report of about a quarter of an inch accumulating of ice.
So that forecast, it verified. Yeah. And I'm sure there's other spots where it's even a little bit higher. And so Blacksburg, my aunt lives in Blacksburg. My family's from Southwest Virginia, so this area I'm really familiar with. But it is very mountainous, and that's also a big concern. My family always tells me, power is always our biggest issue when we're dealing with a winter storm. So to see these numbers, not a good situation from Roanoke and points just to the southwest, all the way through Richmond. That's kind of where we're seeing the worst of the situation right now.
Yeah, looking at the Blacksburg office, the National Weather Service office out of there. So they've been tracking the freezing rain. They anticipate it to really be an issue through the morning. The next system coming in will reintroduce that threat, and then it'll switch to rain by tonight. But they do highlight the Blue Ridge Parkway. I talked about the Blue Ridge Parkway earlier this week.
Yeah.
It runs through the spine of the worst of the weather that we have. And when you talk about these winding roads, a little bit more topography in spots, it could be very slippery, very, very slippery.
Mm-hmm. And then we have to talk about the rest of the nation because, of course, unfortunately, closely on the heels of this first storm that is working its way eastward, eventually will be moving its way off the coast. Then we have to talk about the storm that's blasting the Midwest. So it really came into play and really got underway overnight. And now we're looking at scenes like this, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is just below us. And I'm seeing a lot of reports in and around the area of about 2.5 to 3.5 inches of snow. Kansas City, my hometown, starting to see some reports coming in as well, about 3 inches roughly. So this is kind of a dicey commute for a lot of folks. Or, I mean, you think about it, it's 8 o'clock Central Time for these folks. I think a lot of areas probably just went ahead and canceled school. You said that the Kansas City school districts, they canceled altogether, and for good reason, because although maybe we didn't have that much snow on the ground at 6, 7 a.m., it's the fact that it's lingering, and we've got covered roads all across the entire state. And I mean, there's not very many spots where you don't have snow-covered roads.
Yeah, and the reality is plows are going to be out trying to clear what they can, but the interstates are first, and then the secondary, tertiary roads. So it could be a very slow start for so many. But all of this shifting over into places across the Great Lakes in the Midwest, and similar to Kansas City, it will be a fun, drier snow to enjoy. Let's continue this coverage because, as I mentioned, several cities in the Midwest, this will likely be the biggest snowstorm of the season so far. Some areas are way behind when it comes to snowfall, at least when you look at those seasonal averages. We want to take it into Chicago, the Windy City, the biggest single storm for you guys in Chicago. That delivered about 2 inches of snow. That was back in January. You've had storms move through, but it hasn't amounted to snow, but more so just wet, cold rain. Here's a look into Chicago right now. Again, a little bit more eerie than even earlier. The sun is trying to work its way through, but the clouds have thickened up, and we are watching the system move in from the west. Chicago has about a 15-inch deficit right now. We do have a winter weather advisory, by the way, that's in effect, and that'll take us into Thursday. Fox Weather correspondent Robert Ray joining us out of the Windy City. Robert, I don't know, I know you grew up in the Chicago area, and once we get to a certain age in life, we always start to tell these stories of back in the day. I remember these big snowstorms, right? I remember school shutting down. But if you look at the past few years, it's been tough for Chicago. This season in particular just hasn't been one that kids, I think, have been happy with, because we haven't had good snow.
That's so true, Marissa. Yeah, the old stories, I used to hike through the snow to school. Hey, you know what? Actually, there's some truth to that, really. At least when I was growing up in the 80s in Chicago and into the very early 90s. Indeed, it was rough winters, and we just haven't seen that, at least in the past few years. But, Marissa, I was just talking to Mike Kaplan, veteran meteorologist from Fox 32 Chicago, and he and I were exchanging some tidbits back and forth. He pointed out that, Chicago has gotten about a third of the snow that they usually get this time of year. And those two systems that were sort of significant dropped about 2.2 inches of snow only this meteorological winter season. So this indeed will be the biggest snowfall that the Chicagoland area has gotten all winter. And the numbers as far as how many inches will vary based upon where you're at, whether you're in a western suburb or a northern suburb or here on the lakefront in Chicago. But look at that behind me. Look at that skyline. Amazing, with the pancake ice is what it's referred to on Lake Michigan. The closer you get to the shoreline, it's frozen and it's kind of moving back and forth, kind of like a ship at sea. You see the video out there. And yes, if you're watching that and you're saying to yourself, oh my gosh, does that look cold.
I'm a Southern Philly sports car driving in Stilettos kind of babe, and it came expertly authenticated, like legit, real. So now, on to making my dreams a reality. Yeah, eBay.
winter advisory begins at about 9 a.m. Central. So actually right now, it's 9 a.m. Central. So that snow will likely start making its way into Chicago downtown in the next couple hours and will continue all the way throughout the afternoon into the evening, and the advisory ends at about 3 a.m. It's anybody's guess, really, because of the dynamics of Lake Michigan and the way snow happens here in Chicago, exactly how much. They should actually have a line out in Vegas so people could bet an over/under on it. Who knows, right? We could get 4 inches, we could get 6 inches. In other areas, we could get even more. But take a look at last week, last Thursday. As a matter of fact, I was standing in downtown Chicago as ice had formed on the roads because of freezing rain. We got about a tenth of ice on those roads that caused havoc. And today, I think a lot of people are working from home, and schools, many of them are canceled in anticipation of the largest snow event Chicago will have experienced this winter. About 300 snow vehicles are out and about in Chicago, ready to plow when that snow begins and starts to accumulate. They've already been dropping salt. That will help the roadways. Already cancellations at O'Hare, preliminary cancellations, and there will be many, many delays. And this is just the appetizer for what will be a very snowy, wintry weekend ahead. More snow on the way after today, and then sub-zero temps that will begin basically tomorrow, and then really amp up next week. So the February winter switch, it is on here in Chi-Town and in so many areas as we stand here on the beautiful cold shores, icy shores of Lake Michigan here in Chi-Town. Back to you guys.
Whenever I think of winter, I think of Chicago. I just feel like it's one of those cities that really does live winter in the fullest way possible. It's important you talked about the temperatures, Robert, because I heard your teeth were chattering a little bit, and we feel for you out there in the elements because these wind chills are brutal. It's only going to get colder, and any ice that's there is going to stick around. But yeah, how it feels out there is so important because that's what people need to dress for.
Oh, yes, big time, big time. And I actually am kind of kicking myself. Normally, I have a fleece pant underneath the winter pant. Mm-hmm. This morning when I walked out, I'm like, I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to be a little loose. I think I made a mistake. That's okay. It is what it is. But the teeth shattering, yeah, it is that kind of feel out here this morning as a blue hue exists here in Chicago. That's what you think about with cold.
Yeah.
And that is Chicago right now.
Chicago's kind of frozen over. Look no further than Lake Michigan behind you to find some of the ice. But appreciate the update, Robert. This is going to be a big one for Chicago. And then even some scattered chances over the next few days after this. But this will be the one that delivers, I think, some of the bigger totals as you were talking about. I would bet on this one for sure. Fox weather correspondent Robert Ray, hopefully we can get you a moment to go warm up, maybe in a heated car. Hopefully. Thanks, Robert.
Oh, he needs a big cup of coffee, too, or hot chocolate, whatever he prefers. Well, heading down south now, here's a live look this morning out in Gulfport, Mississippi, as the sun is shining. We're overcast, but not too bad. But unfortunately, Gulfport is just one of many locations bracing for 2 rounds of severe storms. So from heavy rain and flooding to damaging wind and even possible tornadoes. The south is in the target zone for severe storms today from eastern Louisiana stretching over to western Georgia, especially this afternoon, lingering into tonight. And we'll have more on this severe weather threat when Weather Command comes right back.
More boxes, more options. Grainger has over 1,700 box types in stock and ready to help you pack, store, and ship everything. And you can count on Grainger to deliver your boxes fast. Count on Grainger for boxes. Call or click Grainger.com/boxes today.
Your membership is more than just a card. It's your gateway to extraordinary experiences. With the AAA app, discover savings and hidden gems. AAA, we're always with you.
Free Tax USA, where federal filing is always free with no games or pricing gimmicks. Because choosing your tax software shouldn't be a guessing game. Companies may claim their federal tax filing is free, that is, minus the hidden fees, high prices, unwanted add-ons. No way. And when you're ready to submit, it's not really free. Not this year, my friend. You have found Free Tax USA. Say goodbye to forced upgrades and unexpected fees. The only trick up our sleeve is free federal tax filing for everyone. Go to freetaxusa.com.
However you book, first check Kayak to search hundreds of travel sites at once and compare hotel prices to find a great deal.
More boxes, more options. Grainger has over 1,700.
Can you say pre-loved? Can you say great deal? Voila.
This kind of hurts a little bit, but dang, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, take a listen to that. That's thunder sleet coming out of Norman, Oklahoma earlier this morning. Thunder sleet occurs when a thunderstorm's warm, moist air clashes with cold air at the surface, causing rain to freeze into small ice pellets. Of course, sleet before reaching the ground. Now, it is pretty rare.